Hello, everyone. Pat that MMA back with week 10 of our DWCS breakdowns. Sorry for not getting these out as quick as I wanted to. I've been sick these past couple of days and really just haven't been feeling it, but feeling a little bit better. So I'm going to be trying to get some of these done. We're going to be starting off with the main event of week 10 action. Heraldo Souza versus Nick Klein. Going to be starting off with Heraldo Souza first here. So Heraldo Souza is 5'11". He is a 72-inch reach and he's 29 years old. He is from Brazil. He holds a 9-1-1 professional record with 3 knockout wins and 5 submissions, so 8 finishes and 9 wins. And he's the current SFT welterweight champion. So this will only be his second fight at 185 pounds. He spent most of his career at welterweight and even has fought as low as lightweight before. He is a very confident style, just a very confident fighter overall. He's really good at making reads and uses a lot of feints in order to do so. He also has a really nice jab and a left hook that he uses to set up his combinations. He likes to throw in combination a lot. Sometimes his combinations even run a little bit too long. Souza has some big power in both hands, especially in his overhand right and in both of the hooks he throws. He just has a lot of impact when he lands. Souza also has some decent kicks. They are a bit slow, but he does kick with both legs and he does target really all areas. It's just they are just really slow sometimes. While Souza is throwing a combination, he does become a little bit predictable because of how long he is throwing these combinations, and you can almost sit there and try to pick what shot he's going to throw next, and you could be right. Souza does have some really good elbows though, and a really clean straight right to the body. Souza can take a clean punch for sure, but he's one of those fighters that will take one to give one, which is always just going to be a risky style. And he does leave his chin out and just get reckless and over aggressive at times. His cardio also isn't the best either. He normally starts to gas in like the early second, mid-second round. I will say he can fight through being gassed. It's just you clearly see there is fatigue. When he starts to get fatigued, his movement kind of dies out with that. Normally he's bouncing around the cage and his movement's incredible, but when he gasses out, he just is flat-footed and still. And another thing with Souza is he just gets touched up by kicks too much. He does get hit by a lot of different kicks, and he trips a lot inside of the cage. It's very weird. Like he's always tripping. Could be getting him into trouble in certain times because guys can just jump on top of him after a trip and get top position. Souza does like to pressure, but also doesn't have some crazy volume. Like he does throw a combination a lot, but his volume overall, I wouldn't say is the craziest. On the ground, Souza has decent takedowns, and he's pretty solid on top with some heavy and consistent ground and pound. He also has some really slick subs, like his armbar is really clean. He's not the best at finishing overall on the ground, though. I know he has the 5 submission wins on his record, but if you watch some of his more recent fights, he's not the best at actually getting those submissions finished. But Souza does have some really good control on the back, and he is decent on his back. He has some pretty good get-ups. He's very creative and flexible, so he can really like maneuver in certain ways and make it hard for him to be controlled on top. But if he is gassed, what it is later in fights, he can be controlled and beat up a bit later on the ground because of his questionable gas tank. Just overall for Souza, though, I think he's personally better at 170. I think he's so much faster. I think he has better hands, better kicks, looks more powerful, and throws in combination better and more often. I just think that 185 for Souza might not be the right weight class. Now, moving on to Wisconsin's Nick Klein. So, Nick Klein is 6'1 at 29 years old with a 5-1 professional record. He has 2 wins by knockout and 2 wins by submission. He's only fought at 185 twice, but it is his natural weight class because when he has fought up at light heavyweight and even heavyweight, he's only weighing in at like 205, 210. So the cut down to 185 is the natural cut for a guy his size. The thing about this fight is though, Nick Klein is stepping in on just a week notice, very, very short notice, stepping in for Wes Schultz, who is his teammate. So he isn't getting a lot of time to prepare at all. So I'm actually going to start with Klein's grappling because that's really where he shines. He has some very solid clinch work and cage control and can really grind his opponents down in the clinch. He has a really nice double leg with some really good timing on it that he uses to just kind of consistently and constantly get his opponents to the floor. And he has some really good control on top. Once he's on top of you, if he gets to a decent top position, he really is just going to sit there. He isn't going to let you up. He isn't going to really try to pass. He's going to just sit there and land some short strikes while just mauling you and wearing on your gas tank. Klein also does have chokes. He has a decent rear naked choke and just can finish the fight by submission overall. He does have those 2 submission wins on his record, and those actually do happen to come in his 2 most recent fights. For Klein, though, he really doesn't offer much against the cage. He can be taken down, and off of his back, he really doesn't have much for his opponents there. He kind of can get beat up a bit on the bottom. So on the feet, Klein has some pretty solid leg kicks and an okay jab that he uses well to maintain range. He doesn't use it too much, but he just uses it when he needs to kind of push his opponent back and keep them off. He has a really solid left hook that he kind of like curls over the top of his opponent's guard. That was one of his main things on the feet that I really like, the way he curls that left hook. And he has a decent push kick as well with some pretty solid body knees. He really just has a lot of good range managers on the feet, like just ways to keep opponents at distance because overall he really doesn't have the best striking and he just wants to use his striking to set up his wrestling. Klein actually has some decent head movement though, but he does keep his chin up coming in. He actually feints pretty well, but has some pretty weak striking overall, honestly. I think his hands are a bit slow and sloppy at times, and he can be caught by the left hand. If a pace and pressure is put on him overall, he could gas out in his fight in his only loss against Dorjan Dokaj. He did gas out and get finished in the third round. And he against the cage, he kind of lets opponents tee off on him a bit if he starts to get pressured and really just backed up. And he just doesn't really have the best footwork. The thing with Klein, though, is he only has two fights of tape. They're long fights, but I really just don't get the full picture of his fights because you can't watch his last fight, which was a 57-second rear naked choke, and you can't watch his first two fights, which were both TKOs within 30 seconds. So I'm very curious to see how Klein looked in those fights because I feel like it would have given me a bit more of a picture on him. From what I've been able to gather with Klein, it seems like he'll have a game plan to wrestle and kind of just control and maul his opponent on the ground and finish them there. But if that doesn't work, then he's a bit stumped and really doesn't have much. So for my prediction for this fight, I actually think it's pretty tough because I'm stumped completely. This fight could go a couple different ways, and I really just can't picture how it's going to go in my head. Souza has been preparing more, so I expect his cardio to be a bit better than it has in previous fights, but Klein usually does have the better cardio. The thing is, when Souza gasses, he can kind of fight through it. When Klein gassed the one time I saw, he really wasn't fighting through it well at all. I really have no clue who to predict for this fight. I can see Souza knocking him out. I can see Klein subbing him, ground and pounding him, or just grinding him out to a decision. I really don't know what to think here. And also the really bad part with this is Klein has fought as high as heavyweight and light heavyweight, and Souza has fought as low as lightweight before in his career. So I also just think Souza isn't in his natural weight class. So just for that reason alone, I think I'm gonna pick Nick Klein to win by a second round ground and pound stoppage. It's such a low confidence pick. Shout out Artem MMA for giving me the idea to say this. It is such a low confidence pick for this fight. I could easily see Souza clipping him, catching him, and knocking him out early. I think I'm gonna have to lead with the wrestler that I think has fought the better competition overall. It's pretty similar. I don't really know. It's just a very, very tough fight to say overall. So I'm just gonna say give me Nick Klein to win by round. No, I'll give you Nick Klein to win by decision. See, I'm so indecisive about this fight. I'm sitting here now and I can't even tell you guys a proper prediction because I'm really just all over the place. It is so tough to pick this fight. I'll be releasing the rest of my episodes from DWCS later this week. All of my breakdowns will be on my YouTube channel, so please make sure to come and check those out. I appreciate you all for watching and I hope you enjoy.